Welcome back. Millions of Americans travel by air every year, and some longtime FAA inspectors have an urgent warning. They claim that airlines are not as safe as they could be and worry that lives could be at stake. In an exclusive CBS News investigation, Tony DeCopel spoke to roughly a dozen FAA inspectors from across the country, some of them risking their jobs, they say, to blow the whistle on how they say they are told to overlook important problems. Take a look.
What's at stake here?
People's lives.
It's gotten to that point.
Yes.
The flying public needs to wake up.
Two inspectors, each with a decade of experience with the Federal Aviation Administration, say they have an urgent message for U.S. travelers.
What does the public need to know before it gets on an airline today?
That it's not as safe as it could be.
Both asked to remain anonymous because they fear losing their jobs for speaking out.
I've had reports that I've had entered into our database. One day we're there, next morning they're gone.
They say managers at the FAA pressure inspectors like them to ignore critical safety issues like corrosion or making sure vendors are FAA compliant, and then retaliate if inspectors refuse to back off.
How do you get the message that you should back off?
Well, I've been told to back off.
You've been told flat out?
Flat out, told to back off. I've had airlines contact my management and ask them not to sign me any inspections to that airline.
Have you had the experience of finding a problem, reporting it, and being punished for it?
Yes, repeatedly, over and over.
How widespread is this among inspectors?
It's very widespread.
This 2016 Inspector General's report echoes their concerns, finding that another FAA inspector was pressured to back off an airline, then punished by management.
You Charles Banks?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Tony DeCopel with CBS News. Just got a couple questions for you.
Okay.
Just take a second. Is it true that you were punished by the FAA for filing reports of problems at Miami Air International? We have an IG report that says it was. It is true. It's true?
It is.
Miami Air International is a charter service with about 1,000 government contracts worth more than $200 million in just the past 5 years. Earlier this month, one of its charters carrying U.S. military troops from Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, made a crash landing in Jacksonville, Florida. No one died and the cause isn't yet known, but that wasn't the first time Miami Air International has had trouble ferrying troops. In 2017, the airline had multiple problems with vendor fuel lines, problems Banks had flagged in his earlier reports.
Do you still work as an FAA inspector
Yes, I am.
on that airline?
Nope. I'm no longer on that. They removed me off that air carrier.
You were removed.
Yes.
Who's the customer at the FAA? The flying public or the airline?
Ideally, it's the flying public. That's our mission.
In reality?
In reality, I've heard airlines be referred to as customers, as stakeholders. I've also heard inspectors say, at my airline, at our airline. It's not my airline.
As though they work for the airline.
Yeah.
In 2015, the FAA adopted a compliance program focused on mutual cooperation with airlines, instead of a traditional enforcement-focused regulatory model.
Is the FAA too cozy with the airlines?
I think more towards the airlines, the upper management is, yes.
Are there airlines out there today who you believe should be fined?
Yes.
Are there airlines out there today that you believe should be grounded?
I think there's a few airlines out there that we need to take a hard look at doing that too.
The FAA declined our request for an interview, but told us the FAA has a comprehensive safety oversight system that encourages the sharing of information to identify problems and ensure they are fixed. The agency also wrote in a statement, the U.S. aviation system has a safety record that is unprecedented in history, with only one domestic death in the past 10 years.
On the verge of an issue happening.
We're talking about a crash.
We're talking about a crash inside the United States borders.
They both pointed to incidents like the Lion Air and Ethiopian Airlines crashes, both related to U.S. manufacturer Boeing, whose own relationship with the FAA is under scrutiny, as indicators of what could happen.
We've already seen quite a significant uptick in just the last few months.
You think we're seeing the beginning signs of this culture problem showing up in flight safety?
Yes.
So you're hoping that the wake-up call is this conversation?
I hope so, yes.
And not a crash in the future?
Not a crash, that's what I hope to prevent. I'm here to make sure there's no blood on my hands.
Again, that was Tony.